general overview of. Okay, so we start the recording. So thank you, Amrit. The goal of today's work group is a general overview of CORE, the SB 170 funds for California small businesses and sole proprietor professional landscapers, and how the implementation manual, which describes all the elements of CORE and sets forth the terms and conditions for participation, should get updated to be consistent with SB 170 funding. Today's discussion will focus on participating manufacturers, dealers, and eligible equipment. The next work group, which is scheduled for June 22nd, will focus on purchasers and dealer support. Slide number 2. So a quick rundown of what I would like to cover in CORE today. First, an overview of the CORE program. We'll then discuss the professional landscaping portion of the CORE program. We'll then review some proposed equipment types for this equipment category. Then we'll finish up on some basics on how to participate. Okay, this is the first work group meeting. All the ideas we provide here are proposed, and we want to hear from you guys. What has worked well in the past in other programs similar to this? What did not work out so well for you? Again, we want to hear from you. This meeting will focus on the equipment side of the project, so how manufacturers and dealers participate. As we learn from the manufacturers and dealers, it will help us for the next work group meeting. The next meeting later this month, on the 22nd, will be for purchasers and dealer support. Slide number 3, Amrit. Now a little overview of CORE. CORE is intended to accelerate the deployment of advanced zero-emission technology in the off-road sector by providing a streamlined way for fleets to access funding, which will help offset the incremental cost of such technology. CORE targets commercial-ready products which have not yet achieved a significant market foothold. This program allows stacking, which means you can use funding from this program and other incentive programs, but still need to follow the incentive rules for each. Also, CORE does not require scrappage of one of your current pieces of equipment. The program is a first-come, first-served system. We want to maintain a program which is user-friendly and a simple voucher process. In the past, CORE's provided vouchers for large and larger off-road zero-emission equipment, such as yard trucks and forklifts. SB 170 specifies funding for small businesses and sole proprietors, which provides professional landscape services. SB 170 provides $30 million for CARB to utilize an existing program, such as CORE, to provide these incentives. We have been meeting with several owners of landscape companies and professional landscape equipment dealers in the past few months. We're trying to learn about your industry and your help and suggestions on how we can make this a great program. Slide number 4, please. Okay, here's the general timeline of what we're looking at. The heavy-duty off-road CORE, shown in the first line and the top line there in blue. We've already provided the new implementation manual that came out last month. We'll be opening up vouchers on July 18th. Now, on the landscape side, on the bottom row there, this component will be moving fairly fast. Today is our first work group meeting, as again is focusing on dealers and manufacturers, voucher amounts, and eligibility. Work group number 2 on June 22nd is before dealers support a purchase and outreach. Work group number 3 will be the launch. During this meeting, we'll release the implementation manual with professional landscaping in Appendix D. At the same time, the next arrow is kind of the IM update and MD open. We'll open up for manufacturer dealer applications. Once that's been opened, then we will have the voucher application process will open. The whole purpose of this effort, the work group meetings that we're having here and June 22nd, is leading up to an update of the implementation manual attachment D. Attachment D will be referencing the zero-emission landscape equipment only. Slide number 5. Our program is funded by two funding pots, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and the Air Pollution Control Fund. Each funding pot have requirements and limitations on how funds can be spent. For example, the GGR funds can only be used for heavy-duty zero-emission off-road freight equipment and zero-emission commercial-grade landscape equipment. The expansion of core equipment types has allowed the Air Pollution Control Fund. We would like to use the $86.45 million to flow through core to fund specifically professional landscape equipment for sole proprietor and small business owners. We're currently working with the local air districts in California, which may allow some stacking opportunity for lawn and garden equipment. Stacking is a process by which a user can combine funds from various sources. Slide number 6. I've mentioned this a couple times in the presentation already, but the SB 170 funding specifies that the funding must be used for small businesses or sole proprietors. We would like to use a small business definition from the California Government Code section 14837D1A, and an overview of that would be the company will need to be domiciled in California, 100 or fewer employees, and have an annual gross receipts of $10 million over the past 3 years. Next slide, please. I touched on this earlier. The next work group scheduled for June 22nd will focus on purchasers and dealer support. But I do want considerations on ideas for the next work group. And one of the big questions we have is how equipment purchasers will need to provide proof of business status. For example, will businesses need to provide, small businesses and sole proprietors need to provide a contractor's license, a business license, maybe a tax ID, personal tax identification, or maybe a dealer attestation. For example, your dealer would attest that the buyer of the equipment is a small business or sole proprietor. These are just some ideas. We're looking for your input on how we can do this easily and easily. Purchasers will only be able to select from the core eligible zero-emission equipment list only. And by reviewing the current core webpage, you'll see this in action. Right now, it's only freight equipment. And as we move through the summer, other equipment will be added, such as construction and ag. And then as we go through this process, we'll be adding zero-emission landscape equipment to the same webpage. We also want to make this process as simple as possible and limit the paperwork at the point of sale. And any ideas you have, like I mentioned earlier, from past programs, we can make it better. We would like to hear that. I also want to touch on scrappage again. So there's some confusion from some emails I received. So scrappage is where you don't have to return in or destroy your current gas-powered piece of equipment to get a zero-emission piece of equipment. If you stack, we talked about stack earlier, stacking, the other program may require scrappage, but the core program does not. I also want to touch on this. There's also a 3-year ownership commitment buying this equipment through this program. Slide number 8, please. We'd like your feedback on the core categories we have listed here: the proposed voucher amounts, the maximum per unit, and the proposed funding cap. Are we providing too much funds? Do we need to provide more funds? Are there other pieces of equipment we should consider? SB 170 states zero-emission small off-road equipment, including but not limited to leaf blowers and lawnmowers, as is defined by the state board, for use in their professional landscape services. This is what we've come up with. Any ideas or adjustments, we'd like to hear from you guys. Now, I'm going to slide number 9. I'd like to touch on how to participate. We need equipment from manufacturers and dealers to help sell equipment as we provide the voucher. The equipment owners to purchase the zero-emission equipment from the dealers. Again, we want to make this easy as we can for all parties involved. The current implementation manual provides what we are currently using to allow participation in the program. We'd like to keep it similar, and manufacturers provide an application to get their equipment into the program. Dealers apply to the core dealer. go through some training and take a dealer quiz. And for the equipment owners, work with their approved dealers and purchase your core discounted equipment. Slide number 10. Core currently requires manufacturers to submit equipment data and information. A current list of requirements for Core can be found in attachment A of the implementation manual. While equipment evaluation process for landscape equipment may vary, it is our intent to evaluate equipment in a similar manner to ensure that commercial viability and professional grade equipment are allowed into the program. Manufacturers should describe a workforce development or job training component for the zero emission equipment. This would include providing support for technicians located within a dealer network or educational institutions that could supply technicians to dealers or repair centers. The current manufacturer terms and conditions in attachment A may or may not apply to this equipment type. We will have upcoming meetings. And I ask manufacturers to look at the current implementation manual attachment A and provide your input on what works and what doesn't work for this equipment type. Slide number 11. Dealers who wish to participate in Core must be trained and approved through CalStart, our project administrator. And only approved dealers will be allowed to participate. Dealers who work closely with the manufacturers to ensure employees' workforce training must be made available to staff, as well as provide their training and education. We'd also like to have a workforce training component to this project, dealer to owner. The current terms and conditions may or may not apply to this equipment type. As you have upcoming dealer meetings, I will ask the dealers to look at the current implementation manual in attachment C to provide your input on what works best and what may not apply to this equipment type. Slide number 12. As I stated earlier, we're planning on having other work group meetings in the next few weeks, using the feedback from this meeting as we develop the next meeting. We can better reach out to professional. How can we better reach out to professional landscapers and sole proprietors? Any ideas, please send those to me. That was a bit of information, but not too bad, I don't think. And at this time, I'd like to open up for questions and comments. We ask that you raise your hand and let us know if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment. Amrit will then unmute your line. For those of you participating via phone, please press #2 to raise your hand, and please state your name and affiliation prior to your question or comment. Okay, Amrit, do we have any questions or comments or raised hands?
Yeah, we have quite a few raised hands. So I'll start with Ron Asklund. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Dr. Ronald Asklund. I'm chair of the San Diego Sierra Club Zero Waste Subcommittee and a co-leader of SD-Sequel. So SD-Sequel is a coalition of groups representing various organizations, including Clean Earth for Kids, San Diego Climate Reality Project, SD350, Electrify Now, the League of Women Voters, and other climate and advocacy groups and concerned citizens. First of all, I'd really like to thank you for splitting off the zero emissions lawn equipment from the heavy duty core equipment. That's really a good move. A few comments, so thanks for sharing your information. First off, 100 or fewer employers is too big, and a $10 million limit is too big. Those are fairly large landscaping companies, and this would not fulfill the intent of SB 170. I think you've got to take a much closer look. Based on what I see around San Diego, I think it's like 10 employees would be a small one. So I think definitely 100 people working for a company and $10 million is way too high. I think the larger landscaping businesses could easily use up the funds. So not scrapping seems like a really bad idea for two-stroke engines. These things burn an oil and gasoline mixture, and they're burning oil during operation. And SB 170 does not, well, it doesn't say you have to use a core program, and it doesn't say you have to prohibit scrapping. So I guess, we've talked to the South Coast District, and they're doing a lot of great work with scrapping. So I'd like to at least have you think about that. Also, I get a little bit concerned that the riding lawnmower voucher max is 60 times greater than a leaf blower. And it makes me worry that the cheaper units, the string trimmers and the weed blowers are the ones that have the worst pollution because of burning oil. So I think we should consider there maybe somehow giving preference to two strokes. I'm not sure. And then, certainly I think 250 is a little bit of a low limit for these high-end leaf blowers. Finally, I think you need to do something about noise levels. You're making this great push for zero emissions equipment. Some of the electric leaf blowers can be very loud. And so if we could get this down to a noise level of 65 decibels, I think you'd have a much better program. So anyway, thanks for all your work. That's my kind of top line thoughts on the program. Thanks.
Super. Thank you very much for your comments.
All right, we have another raised hand by Beverly. Beverly, you've been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hi, thank you for taking my comment. This is Beverly Deschaux. I'm with the Electric Vehicle Association of Central Coast, California. And I was going to ask the question, did you really say 10 million for a small business? No, I agree with the first caller that that it be much less and much less employees as well. And I also think that the old equipment needs to be scrapped. Definitely, because I don't know, somehow I can't imagine that they aren't going to use them if they still have them. If they've been using them, so they're still useful. So I think they'll still be in use and we won't really be eliminating the problem. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Beverly. That's good comments.
Hi, Todd. I really quickly want to maybe step in. This is Michelle Buffington at CARB. I'm a vehicle program specialist and supporting the core team here on this. I can appreciate, Beverly, your comments on the business size as well as the previous commenters, and it would be really helpful if anyone on the call, if you're commenting, has a sense of what you would consider a small business in the landscaping space to be, because the definition that Todd presented today that the team has proposed is what is described in statute here in California. And so a lot of times we look to either data that tells us what is the appropriate size to identify as a small business, or we will point to definitions that already exist within state statute. So right now we've defaulted to the state statute, but if we can find and gather data and information about business sizes, particularly in the landscaping space, that would be super helpful. So I just maybe wanted to put that out there for all the attendees, that if there is data available in existence, it might be helpful if there's ways for us to have side conversations or follow-up conversations about that. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. Yes.
Yes,
Like I said earlier in the presentation, that these are our proposals. This is what we're thinking, and a lot of times we sit in our cube, or used to sit in our cube all the time and come up with these ideas. But really, when the rubber meets the road, when we have these work group meetings and workshops, and really talk to people that work in this industry. So, like Michelle said, if you have any data or something else that we can point to, that would be great. So, thank you.
Am I still unmuted?
You still are. Yes, we can hear you.
Well, I know just from my neighborhood, I get woken up every other Friday morning early by the very loud leaf blowers, and they only have about 3 or 4 employees. But I live in Santa Cruz. It's not a huge city, so I mean, no more than 10, really. I mean, I would think maybe even 5, but probably 10 might be the max. I can't imagine considering a business with more employees than 10 for landscaping would be a small business, really. And also I wanted to add a comment, follow up on what the man said. I didn't realize that the blowers could, that electric blowers could be loud, because my car is really quiet. So yeah, if they could, if you could limit them to certain manufacturers whose whose sound emissions are lower or a certain decibel, like maybe 65 or 60, then that would be a very good help to our noise pollution. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly.
Thank you. We have a raised hand from Mariela Raucho. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hi, I'm Mariela Racho from the American Lung Association. Thank you for the opportunity to comment today. So we have been engaged on this issue from helping pass legislation, Assembly Bill 1346, working with CARB on the SOAR rule and supporting the 30 million that was approved by the legislature and governor. I see from slide 7, CARB will not require scrapping or retirement of old equipment. CARB should reconsider scrapping and retirement requirements in order to access these funds. Emissions from these engines have now surpassed smog forming emissions from passenger vehicles and are only expected to double in the next 10 years. The goal of the available funds are to replace gas-powered engines with zero emission, which means removing old high-emitting equipment from the fleet. Also, we support releasing the funds as soon as possible to small businesses who might have a difficult time transitioning their equipment to zero emission. And then replacing SOAR fleets with zero emission equipment will provide major health benefits to both landscape workers and residents who are exposed to emissions and or fumes, and reduce risk of respiratory and cardiovascular issues due to exposure. I guess the question would be the not requiring the retirement or scrapping. So thank you.
No, that's a good point. We've talked about that internally, and we've worked with, we reached out to other landscape companies and dealers, and the struggle that they're finding is owners not trusting the zero emission equipment yet, right? So they want to try it, but they don't want to give up their gas powered equipment yet. But once they do start using it on a daily basis and get used to it and get used to charging, then we find that, or the dealers have found that they give up their gas powered equipment. So we're at that point right now, I think, where people are testing the waters. They're not 100% convinced that the zero emission equipment is going to do the job that they needed to do. I think they've so that's where we're at right now. We're looking at that, and we talked about that.
Maybe, Todd, if I can just add to what you're saying, I think part of when we're thinking about small businesses and scrappage with new technology, I think that's a little bit different than when we're thinking about large businesses and larger entities that are trying to adopt zero emission. And so again, with this program focused on small businesses and sole proprietors, paired with the state reserve dollars through the Moyer program, which Todd, I think you referenced at the beginning as potential for stacking. Those dollars from the statewide reserve program will be able to serve many beyond just small businesses and sole proprietors, and that will require a scrap component. So when you're thinking about the number of pieces of equipment that might come through either one of these programs, in the core program, that small businesses and sole proprietors obviously will have smaller numbers of pieces of equipment than large businesses, but also that opportunity to stack. Once a small business sole proprietor, if they do access both programs, there would be a scrap component because they would also be receiving those state reserve dollars. So I also wanted to lay out that there was one other reason why scrap we hadn't contemplated, or we had talked through not including scrap in the core program. And this particular program was, again, this recognition for small businesses, sole proprietors, that it is a high risk to scrap your gasoline powered piece of equipment for zero emission and not necessarily be able to afford a replacement. Like it's a way to ensure that it's a lower risk transaction for them.
Okay, I'm
Thank
ready.
you.
Super.
We have a raised hand from Loris Emerson. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Good day. Yes, thanks for all your preparation and hard work. And my name is Lawrence Emerson. I'm a retired senior transportation engineer. Also a member of the Electric Vehicle Association of San Diego 350, and the San Diego Sequel Group. And they're all tied into cleaning the air. And so I think this is a really good program and appreciate your working on it. One of the main points that I've heard is the first come, first serve. And I think other areas of California have had this kind of program before. And I'm concerned that those funds will be sucked up by these larger, over 100 employees or other areas that have had these programs before. So I really want to emphasize, let us, the people who are working like with San Diego Sequel, be your extended employees for CARB. I know you have some staffing challenges to get all the things you want to get done. And let us help you get it to the small landscapers. 100 employees is just mind-boggling when I'm thinking about the small landscapers that come around. My landscapers have been very happy with the initial shifting to electric. I don't think it's a high risk. The word is getting out that they will save money in the long term, but they just need a little of these funds. So I would like the funds to be fairly distributed by population region, so that we have time to work with dealers and to get the word out to the local small landscapers that these funds are available. So I do think it should be a focus on the small equipment that's the most polluting. I do think there should be scrappage or turn in. Spending $15,000 for the ride-on lawnmowers would not reduce the pollution as effectively as replacing those leaf blowers or the other small trimmers that are 2-cycle. So those are my, I think, major points. I've talked with some dealers already down here, would be quite interested. They've seen other programs where the funds were sucked up by big businesses, and we really don't want that to happen at this kind of program. We want to help it get down to the small landscapers that are working our neighborhood. So those are my main points. And thanks for your effort. And please let us be your extended staff. Train us how to work with the dealers and make the process easier and get the small mama papa landscapers be able to just walk in and do a trade-in program and get some support for the expense of the trade-in. Thank you for your time.
It was great comments, Lawrence. Thank you very much. I just want to touch on the first come, first serve. I think it's a very equitable way to do it, right? And Lawrence, thanks for being here now and being your ears for the small businessmen and the dealers, to get the word out to them now so they're prepared when the voucher opens is the key, right? So we don't want them to find out about this 6 months from now. We want to find out about it now, so we're prepared, and then when we do kick it off, they're in one of the first in line to get this funding. So that is the key, to start now, and any way or anyhow we can help you with outreach. We're more than happy to help you. If you want to meet with us, we can meet with you guys. That's all works out great. But I think that the process starts now after we get out of this meeting to start reaching out to those small businesses, sole proprietors, and dealers and get them on the list.
Thank you, Todd. We'll take one more raised hand and then move over to written questions after that.
Super, thank you.
So we've got a raised hand by Suzanne Hume. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hi, thank you. My name is Suzanne Hume, and I'm the Educational Director and founder of CleanEarthForKids.org and a member of San Diego Sequel, Sierra Club, League of Women Voters, Climate Reality, and many others. As we know, we must reduce air pollution and protect our workers, the public, and environment. So thank you again so much. As you know, gas-powered equipment, especially two-stroke engines, threaten our clean air, our workers, public health, environmental justice, and environmental protection. We really need to remove these two-stroke gas-powered equipment from circulation. We need a scrapping component and, of course, trade-ins and a buyback program. I'd like to echo the comments of San Diego Sequel made today by Dr. Ron Asklund and Lawrence Emerson. So important. Thank you so much for all of the important work that we have that you guys are doing today. Definitely reducing the number of small businesses or the number of workers. What we see is 5 or less. So even if you had 10 to 15, but certainly not 100, and the 10 million annual gross is just, does not allow equity. So I'm excited for you to work on redefining that. That will be amazing. And then, of course, with riding lawnmowers taking up so much of the budget, focusing on gas-powered leaf blowers and other polluting two-stroke engine equipment should be first. And also noise. So definitely do not allow equipment louder than 65 decibels. I think there should be an incentive, right? As we're out there and talking with dealers, not me, but others, about that we really need this quiet equipment, especially if we're talking about schools and other sensitive populations. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Suzanne.
All right, moving over to a couple of the written questions we have. The first question asks, how long would it take to get a dealer approved and added to the core webpage?
Well, we haven't started that process quite yet. I don't know if Jacob, it depends on how prepared they are, I'm sure, but I don't think it takes very long. Jacob, you want to touch on that?
Yeah, so the general process, how it exists in core today, is it's pretty quick. So that there'll be a quiz. The dealer will need to reach out to us. All this information's on the core webpage. Then they'll take a quiz. They'll submit that quiz, sign the dealer terms and conditions, and then usually a few days until we actually get you updated on the actual webpage. But just to be clear, we're not accepting dealer applications for this category yet. That's the items we're talking about today on what should be included in that eligibility. And then when the IM is released here in about a month and a half or 2 or 3, then we'll be accepting dealers for the landscaping component. But we are looking for suggestions and feedback on what that should look like. So take a look at the current terms and conditions for dealers in the implementation manual. And for you dealers that are out there, we definitely want to solicit your feedback on what that should look like.
I hope nobody's scared about the quiz. I heard it's not that hard.
It just makes sure that you understand how the program operates and some of the high level criteria and requirements, and we'll help you get through the quiz. Our goal is not to make sure you're a brainiac, but just to make sure you understand how the program works and that you're going to provide, a certain level of service to the purchasers coming through the program and can educate and train them on this, zero emission equipment.
Yeah. So Jacob's touching on something that is particularly important to me is what we've seen, the experience we have with the larger pieces of equipment is the relationship between the manufacturer and the dealer. Like it's more about the catalog of equipment availability, and they have to certainly, the dealer has to be able to sell those eligible pieces of equipment. But what we're looking for here for these dollars is how to support the purchaser or businesses, small businesses transition to zero emission technology. Because like we said, the market is here, and that is what we're trying to help emerge fully is this commercial grade equipment for these professional landscapers.
Thank you. Our next question is, will there be a cap on vouchers per manufacturer?
I guess, is there a suggestion if there should be or shouldn't be?
Yeah.
Right.
Currently
There
we
isn't
don't.
one now.
There's
Yeah,
not
currently
one
we're
now.
not proposing a cap for manufacturers, but if any stakeholders feel like there maybe should be, we would, be interested in hearing that feedback.
Thank you. We have another question here. It asks, how will the voucher submission process work? Will it be in the form of an Excel sheet submission through email like last year, or will there be a new system this year?
There will be an online voucher processing system. So it will not be Excel.
So it'll be different than last year. So I think it's more streamlined and faster and easier for everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Got a comment from Tina Wright. We typically refer to small landscapers of those operating 1 to 20 zero-turn mowers, not necessarily dependent on profit of the business.
Yeah, like Michelle said earlier, if you have more data or something we can refer to as far as the size of business or income of the business to make a small business, we'd love to hear from you guys. So thanks for that comment.
Thank you. We have a question here from Ron Asklin. How do we find out more about the statewide reserve program? Also, a buyback program gets old equipment out of circulation without the new technology risk of a trade-in.
Right. So you can find out about your state reserve funding through your your local air district. So in San Diego, that's the San Diego County Air Pollution Control District. That's all public information. So whatever district you're in California, if you contact your local air district, they will tell you whether they're into the state program or not. Regardless, all districts are in the Carl Moyer program, and the Carl Moyer program could fund this type of equipment also.
Thank you. We'll take one last written question and then move back over to the raised hands. So I've got a question from Gabe Foe. How do you verify 3 years of ownership?
We just ask that the owner of the equipment operates the equipment for 3 years. I don't know if we do a verification on that, but we ask that they operate for 3 years. Just something to add to that, Jacob?
Well, I was just going to add, so in the traditional heavy duty core program, and this is where we're looking for feedback from stakeholders as well, there's an annual user experience report that's required. And some of the information in there just, will highlight, potentially, how many hours was the equipment used, or, and there's different criteria and data that's requested in that. And we're looking for feedback in for this landscaping component, what makes sense to maybe ask, because we do understand some of this equipment doesn't have hour meters and things like that in the traditional sense as some of the more heavy duty equipment. And so we use those annual user experience reports to verify the ownership throughout the project participation period.
Yeah, so we do check, but maybe for landscaping equipment, we do something a little different than an annual or so. So we'll look for your feedback. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the larger pieces of equipment, we actually have telemetry data. So we do know, there's a GPS thing, we know where there are, but that may not make sense for that kind of complexity to these smaller landscaping pieces of equipment.
Thank you. I'm going to move over to the raised hands again. All right, so Kathy Less, you have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Yes, my name is Kathy Less, and I'm with the Sierra Curtis Neighborhood Association, and that's in Sacramento, California, Northern California. Thank you for all your hard work on this. Those of us in neighborhoods have waited so long for this, and our expectations are very high. In our neighborhood, we try to talk to residents, we try to talk to the landscapers about the importance of going to low emission equipment. And I can tell you the resistance is really strong, both on the part of landscapers and even residents, because they pay very low fees for the services they've got now. And they shy away from what they think will be higher fees. So what I want to suggest, and I didn't know you were going to stop with the hands raised question, so I also put it in the chat box, but it sure doesn't seem like $250 for a new electric blower is going to be anywhere incentive enough for these landscapers. They will hold on to their gas equipment as long as they can, is my expectation. And I really agree with what a lot of the other speakers have said, which is that the $15,000 allocated for ride-a-mowers seems far too generous, proportionate to these residential blowers, which are so prolific all around the state. So that's my point. I could make other points. I agree with pretty much everything that's already been stated, but I really would like you to relook at that incentive amount for the blowers.
Incentive amount for the blowers or the riding lawnmowers?
Well, I guess both, in the sense
Okay,
that one
okay.
affects the other, but I'd like to
Okay.
see one go higher, the other go lower, or however you can re-jimmy the funds. But I don't know, can you give us what you think would be the cost for a new electric blower setup for a typical? And for me, what I see in our city is the typical landscape firms are 1 to 2 people at a time working together.
So
Okay,
the,
so
go
go ahead.
ahead.
So it's really hard to put a cost on a leaf blower, because some leaf blowers are sold without a battery. Some leaf blowers are sold with 2 batteries and a charger. So that adds a fluctuation to the cost that we're trying to nail down. And any information you can provide for us, and manufacturers out there can nail that down even closer to a better amount, we're all ears. The other point I want to make is we do see a lot of 2 to 4 man crews in our neighborhoods, and there's also a lot of companies out there that have several crews, right, of 4-man crews or 3-man crews. So there could be a small business out there that has several trucks that have 3, 4 folks doing landscaping. So just because, anyway, so that's another thing to think about.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, some of the speakers have suggested 10 or few employees, 5 or few. I think that's more what we're seeing in the residential neighborhoods.
Gotcha.
And the electric services that I'm familiar with, they have suggested that a new electric blower is probably going to be $1,500 plus the cost of the batteries. I did notice on your chart that you seem to, in fact, maybe you can explain that, the batteries and the charger might be free. I don't know what you're suggesting.
Right. So we're suggesting we pay for 100%. So if you bought for example, if you bought a blower with 1 battery, and you can't get through a whole day's work on just 1 battery, we would pay for an extra battery at 100% and a charger, right? So you could charge that battery maybe while you're working, or maybe you need 2 batteries to get through the day, charge overnight, something along those lines to help you out.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've got a raised hand by Nastasia Payton. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly clear.
Great. My name is Nastasia Patton. I'm here on behalf of San Diego 350, which is a climate advocacy organization in San Diego. And I just want to really echo most of the comments that have already been made. So I won't repeat all of them, except to emphasize the ones that really caught my attention, which is, as others have mentioned, the scrappage component. It really makes more sense to us to require that old equipment be turned in considering that they're receiving new electric equipment, this is going to be the best way to make sure that moving forward, we're only using the cleaner electric battery powered pieces of equipment. And then the other comment I had is sort of related to what the last speaker mentioned regarding the potential backlash to these new measures, which I think is high. There's going to be some resistance to this. And I was wondering if there is any capacity for CARB to have some sort of like public health or messaging or an outreach effort to educate the public on the really harmful effects of these gas two-stroke engines and just, you know, all the various elements of pollution that are so horrible. I think if people really understood how bad they were, they might be more inclined to accept the, you know, new rules without resistance. And so it just might help the whole program move forward more smoothly. So I don't know if that's something that is in your purview or something you're capable of doing, but you know, something similar to like anti-smoking campaigns, you know, with a lot of graphic imagery or things like that, I think might have some effect on public opinion. But overall, I just wanted to say as well, thank you for this really informative presentation. Thank you for all the efforts you've made to move forward with getting these really dirty machines off of our earth, or at least in our state. So thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. I think you brought a good comment that there will be some resistance, and we're trying to work with some other dealers throughout the state as we move forward with this to have, you know, like outreach events where they can get their hands on electric pieces of equipment, right? So if we can just get small business sole proprietor landscapers to get their hands on the equipment, try it out, mow a little bit, check it out, and see that it really works and does the job that they needed to do, that could get them over that hump also.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great idea. It will definitely help, but I think there's also the issue of property owners. I mean, at the end of the day, those are the people who are hiring the landscapers and choosing to hire landscapers that use gas-powered equipment, and you know, because of the cheaper prices, and they're the ones driving kind of the market demand for this cheap and dirty usage. So I think, you know, at the end of the day, landscapers will go along with what makes economic sense. And, you know, I'm sure they will ultimately realize the benefits to their own health and happiness when they're not blasting, you know, the two-stroke engines all day. But for the, you know, homeowners that sit in their houses and don't have to deal with the equipment, I think those are the people that are going to be the most vocal. So just something to consider.
Good point. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a raised hand by Kim Alexander. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
This is Kim Alexander. I am the co-convener along with Heidi Sanborn of Mo Better, which is a coalition of stakeholders at the state and local level based in Sacramento working to phase out gas-powered lawn equipment. Thank you for convening this meeting and for all the important work you guys are doing. And it's nice to see you again. Couple comments I wanted to share. CARB's own research that was published last year under the leadership of Dr. Dorothy Fabeiger found that the average income for small proprietor businesses providing landscaping services is $40,000 a year. So that might be a good baseline to use for how you define who the small businesses are, which CARB's own research. It's going to be tricky to find these folks because a lot of them aren't necessarily licensed. So it's a good idea to work through the dealers because that's who they connect with. I'm joined with others being disappointed about the idea of not incorporating a scrappage element to this. You know, we saw the passage of AB 1436 and CARB's adoption of the regulations to phase out the sale of gas-powered lawn equipment starting in 2024. And this money is meant to help along that path. But we all know that just because this equipment isn't going to be sold anymore in the state after 2024, people are going to continue to use it for many, many years. if nothing else happens. So a lot of us are really counting on this funding to help accelerate that transition. One way that you might incentivize more turning in of the equipment is to provide a higher reimbursement or rebate for people who do turn in equipment. You could give them, you know, $500 per unit instead of $250 or something like that. So that might be a way to do it. I know it creates more work for you guys. I saw it when SMUD did a buyback program. You know, it's a lot of work to build that element in, but you know, this is like, we want to take this bad stuff off the streets. You know, this is like a gun buyback program. We need to take this equipment off the street. So when your board met, when the CAR board met and took up those regulations, Dr. Sperling spoke, and he was shocked to hear that two-stroke engines were still being used in the state of California. It was news to him, and it was really shocking to me that it was news to him. So I feel like, you know, we're living in two different worlds. He lives in Beverly Hills where this equipment is already banned, and I live in Sacramento where we endure it all day long. And so that goes to, you know, this issue that also came up of the first come, first serve issue. I think that that's something that would be great to take into consideration as well. You know, maybe there's the idea of doing it by population levels. You could also look at air quality levels and see which regions of the state are the dirtiest and maybe target more funding to businesses that are in those areas. As other people noted, this equipment is expensive. The commercial mowers that my gardener is eyeing cost $800 to $1,000. You know, these aren't the same pieces of equipment that homeowners buy. So if you're looking at what the prices are at Home Depot for this, an electric mower or blower, that's not what the gardeners are looking at. They're looking at stuff that costs a lot more. I really encourage you to set aside some funding for education and outreach and consider contracting with the American Green Zone Alliance, which has already developed really strong relationships with manufacturers and dealers all over the state and nation, and they could really help get the word out on the street and give demonstrations, and it could really help move this program along. And I agree with the comments other people made about the ride-along mower amount being too high and trying to really target this where the dirtiest equipment is, which is the two-stroke engines in the smaller equipment. Regarding the noise levels, I've noticed that some of the sites that sell equipment like Leaf Blower Direct have started providing the decibel rating on equipment on their website. So just having that be part of the information that's provided through your site about the equipment would be helpful. Might help more gardeners realize, oh, this is going to be quieter than what I'm dealing with, and might help incentivize them to want to transition. I agree with the comments about the size of the crews being 100 being too large, and I agree that 10 or less is important, but also want to note that, you know, a company's number of employees may not be the total number of people you see on one day. They may have some people come on one day and other people come on another day. So that may be something else that the folks that did the study under Dr. Fabeiger's leadership might be able to help with answering that question. And the other thing I just wanted to mention was that, you know, this is a chance for you guys. You know, you're talking about how you want to change the market, and that's super important. And what I've seen in the buyback program we saw in Sacramento was that it was very difficult for people to get information about the equipment that was available for the buyback. You know, you had to email, you had to call and ask them to email you something, and then you got a list. It wasn't on their website. So to the extent that this program can help incentivize the retailers and dealers of this equipment to be more upfront about whether their equipment is gas or electric in the first place, that would be really helpful. So, you know, I hope that as you move forward, you can think about how your requirements can help turn around some of the marketing and advertising of this industry across the board to be more sensitive to things like decibel ratings or what is the power source of this equipment, which right now that kind of information is really hard to find if you look online trying to locate that. Thank you for taking my comments.
Thank you, Kim. And I think if you look at our webpage, you can see how we're going to have it set up. So only equipment that's authorized to be purchased through the dealer to the owner will be on that webpage. It's right now there's just a lot of big equipment on there from freight, but as we move forward with this project, we'll populate it with zero emission landscape equipment. So you can just take a peek at that. I think you can see how we have that set up. So I hope that makes it very easy, and it'll only be zero emission equipment on that page.
But what I'm suggesting, and I appreciate that, what I'm suggesting is that your program may help some of the people who sell this equipment think about how they are presenting sales on their own websites and help them, provide decibel ratings and whether their equipment is electric or gas, help get them more on board with this transition.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. We have a raised hand by Gabe Foe. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation. Gabe, I think you're still muted, so you just have to unmute yourself. Okay, there's actually two hands raised by Gabe, so maybe I'll try the other one. All right, Gabe, I've tried to unmute you one more time. I don't know
maybe you just stepped away for a second and we'll come back to Gabe.
No, I got it. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thanks, Gabe.
Thank you guys for holding this event together, the workshop. So my name is Gabe Fu. I'm the general manager for Gardenland Power Equipment. We're an outdoor power equipment retailer in Silicon Valley. We actually happen to be the largest dealer in the US selling battery powered equipment. So I wanted to kind of share some insights about some of the feedback that I've heard today. One is just really quickly, the simple answer to this noise level question is all the leaf blowers today, whether it's gas or battery powered, have a decibel rating on them. And basically every electric battery blower is rated at 65 decibels. There used to be a couple manufacturers that had a few more with higher decibels, but they're no longer being manufactured. So in general, all the battery powered blowers are low enough for everybody's kind of concern. Second is just in general, when we talk about the eligibility and the voucher amounts, let me give you a baseline. So most gardeners use like a Honda commercial lawnmower. That's kind of the industry standard. That price is about $1,200 retail. And if you need a commercial quality battery powered lawnmower, let's say from Makita, that's $2,200. So, because they need durable equipment with a long enough runtime to get through the day. So the lawnmower voucher needs to be probably in $1,000 range. And certainly we'll try to work with you guys and provide, if you need actual estimates of like the actual purchase price, we'll be glad to do that. Let me give you a baseline for the leaf blower. A typical gas leaf blower today is $500. And to run a commercial battery blower with enough runtime, which will require 2 batteries, is $2,800. So I'm just giving you actual reality check of the cost difference for battery powered equipment. And of course, you know, we applaud the state for putting a program together to create incentives. As far as, I did want to address a little about the scrapping, because I know it's a hot button for people, but here's one question. I think the scrapping may make sense later down the road, but I wouldn't do it right away. And here's a question for the people that want to scrap today. If you had a landscape company and you had to turn in all your gas equipment now, what are you going to do in 3 months when PG&E turns off the electricity, there's a brownout or a blackout? Because that's the reality. I don't know if anybody's looking at the news, but those are concerns we have for our customers is, you know, they're going to need some transition time. And really we see potential challenges with charging all this battery equipment every day, and the fact that the grid's probably not going to be able to handle the demand. So that would be one reason to maybe create a transition timeline for the scrapping phase out. Had one other comment around just the debate around the company size. I know 100 employees and $10 million sounds like a lot. But if we're trying to make an impact quickly to reduce emissions out there, and the fact that you're going to cap the annual purchase at $100,000 a year, it may make sense to not reduce the size of the business in the beginning, because you're going to have a bigger impact faster with the sort of slightly larger size. I understand that, you know, the majority of the budget wants to be allocated to really the small 1 and 2 truck gardeners, but it's going to be difficult for dealers like us to. I mean, we're gonna do the outreach to try to communicate to our constituency and help with this conversion, but I think you can make a bigger impact faster if you don't cap it right away. So I would just consider maybe some sort of a tiered structure on how you implement the program from that perspective. And I did want to, there was a lot of other questions in the questionnaire, but I did want to comment that we did like the idea of when you're asking how do you qualify a landscape company to be participant in the program, it does make sense to maybe ask for tax ID, business license kind of stuff. And this concept of a dealer, I think was a dealer attestation.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because we are incented to help our customers stay in business. And I think there's a large contingency of gardeners, landscapers that may not have all of those typical business licenses. And I don't think that dealers are really going to abuse that process too much because it's really in our best interest to keep our customers in business. So I just want to kind of give that high level feedback and just thank you guys for providing the platform so we can all participate in this discussion, because like at the end of the day, we all want to see this happen, but we're just concerned about the timing and how it's implemented. So we appreciate the fact that you're allowing us to provide feedback. So thank you.
Thank you, Gabe. And if Gabe or other dealers that and manufacturers are able to provide us more of that sort of cost differential between zero emission and internal combustion engines, that would be great. I think the more data we have, then we can figure out like how to best package the voucher amount. So.
Thank you. We'll take 2 more raised hands and move over to written questions. So we've got a raised hand by Brandon Glover. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to have this workshop. We appreciate it. My name is Brandon Glover. I work for Pacific Steel out of Visalia, California. We are a branch of Steel Incorporated who manufactures gas and battery equipment. Steel's been kind of the leader since 2010 in making commercial battery equipment. We've had quite a bit of experience, and we have a lot of especially customers in California that are using our products, especially commercial landscapers and gardeners. And so there's been a lot of really good comments, but I do want to talk on a couple of things. I think when it kind of comes to the money, that $30 million is kind of a drop in the bucket of really what the dollar amount that we need. I know Gardenland had talked about, you know, some of the costs, especially for professional units. And I'm a little concerned about what maybe some manufacturers might offer as, you know, like air quote, commercial units. A lot of the times the price is going to be more expensive, especially if it's a commercial grade, where sometimes some manufacturers have homeowner units and they're trying to pass it off as commercial. So really, I would say that that we'd really kind of look at that to make sure that the money that the government here is going to be spending on these voucher programs that are going to go for commercial units, because the worst thing would happen is giving them money and then the equipment doesn't last for for years for the equipment. The other thing is I think the Z certification is very important. You know, that really kind of sets it apart for being in a commercial unit, and also needs to be serviceable. Like if there's a problem with any of the equipment, it can actually be serviced. And the other thing I want to talk about the price wise though is I'm actually based out of Southern California, where we have a lot of gardeners down here. And so, I think at one time I read somewhere there was over 55,000 gardeners in California. A lot of them are not legal, or if they are, they're just a very small business. They don't have a business license. And how do you really go after them? And like you said, most of them are making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year, not quite a bit. And I really feel like the average of $10 million in a 3-year period is not going to get most of these people. It's going to get a very small amount, which I really think that needs to happen is you kind of like have different tiers that you offer it to, and you cap it out at those tiers. So we can get gardeners, landscapers, and then there's some big landscapers that have more than 100 employees. And I think I can think in Southern California, I can think of 10 right off the hat that actually has a lot of employees, and if we don't go after all of it, then I just don't think it's going to really do what you guys intended to do. And a couple other things that I had too is on the trade-in, the exchange or the scrapping. I've worked with South Coast Air Quality Management District. They've done exchange programs for the last 3 or 4 years. I think they're kind of the gold standard when it comes to those things. I would really like to see all the air districts kind of have some kind of exchange program. But I think it's important that people realize that gardeners or landscapers do not want to trade in their equipment if they're only going to get, like 30 or 40% of the overall cost of the machine. So if it's got to be really close to 70 to 100% of the cost, because if they already believe in their blowers and their trimmers and their hedge trimmers and gas that are working for them, why would they trade in for a battery one if they're going to have to spend quite a bit of money and they're not sure it's going to work? And I really think that still, especially we have equipment now and battery that is commercial grade, that it's the same power and performance. But the thing is just getting into people's hands, doing demos and with these kind of voucher systems and incentive programs with their districts, I really think we can make a big dent into it. So that's really all I have, but thank you.
No, those are great comments, Brandon. And I'd like to reach out to you, or maybe we can talk a little bit about right now is how you determine commercial grade versus residential grade, right? We've been struggling with that internally, trying to figure that out.
And I think that's one of those things that we can provide for you. But if you take a gas power product and then if you take a kind of a battery equivalent, most of the homeowner battery stuff, you buy a battery and charger all together. It's usually $200, maybe $300, and you get everything. And usually when you buy a commercial piece of equipment, whether it comes with a battery or charger or you have to buy them separately, it's typically going to cost you $500, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. And so that's part of it is price. But the other thing is I think Z certification is very important because it's the state of California. It's their own certification for commercial equipment. I think that needs to be a standard. I think AGSA is really good too. They have a whole certification program so that companies can go through each one of those things. So I think if you take several of those certifications and add it, or at least ideas of how we can, achieve the commercial, I think you could put that together and come up with a standard saying, hey, we will not accept that as this is a commercial piece of equipment unless it meets these standards.
And what about warranty? Is there a difference in warranty between your commercial grade and residential grade?
Well, most people will offer a warranty for homeowner and commercial, but any manufacturer can offer a commercial warranty, even though if it's not a commercial unit. So I think that does help, but I mean, if a manufacturer wanted to offer a commercial warranty on a homeowner product, they can do that. So we try to, at least at Still, try to make sure that if we are offering a commercial warranty, it's going to be a commercial product, but I don't know if that same standard's held through every manufacturer. So I think that's just part of it, but I think you really need to look at these other, aspects of and the other part is really being serviceable. Can you buy parts for it? If something breaks on it, because the last thing we want to do is just throw the piece of equipment, away, or say if it's under warranty and they have all these warranties coming back and they're just throwing equipment away, and that's causing another problem too. And then the last part of this is that I didn't really kind of talk about is we really need to make sure that there's an avenue for these batteries to be recycled, because I'm really worried about, this is just not even talking at Still, just myself, is I see a lot of these landscapers buy buying all these things. And as the batteries go bad or there's issues, they throw them right in the trash. And that creates a whole nother problem that even from gas, that we're throwing away batteries that could contaminate the ground. So we probably might want to look at that in the long run, but these are just all things that we have to kind of consider.
Right. Does still have a program for used batteries or old batteries, like you send it back in or mail them back in and you get a percent off on a new battery or something like that?
Yeah, well, we've contracted with a couple companies that will actually, they can take them back to our dealers and then we can get them recycled. So I don't know if most manufacturers have done that, but that's something that's important that we do promote. And actually on our batteries, there's has recycling information and the number of the contact if they need to do that. One other thing I did want to bring up is part of this, you were talking about having it for 3 years and making sure that they're using it. Still does have in some of our batteries, and we have a thing called Still Connected, where you can actually, it's Bluetooth modules in the batteries and some of the equipment that can actually send over the run times to a phone or up into the cloud, and then they can grab that information of how long the equipment's run for and some other diagnostics. So that is possible. Some of the modules, some of the connectors you actually have to buy as a separate option, but some of them are built into some of the batteries, like our backpack batteries.
Oh, that's very interesting.
So,
Another thing you touched on earlier in your comment was about Scrappage and other programs, working with other programs. All the air districts have funding for other projects. One of them is specifically is the state reserve funds, and a bunch of districts have applied for that program. So check with their air district here in California and see if they've accepted or bought into the state reserve funds, and that's the Carl Moore program. So the Carl Moore program has a scrap component, and as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, that the core program can be stacked with other incentive programs. If that's the case, so say you get some money from core and you get some money from the Carl Moore project, the Carl Moore project would require you to scrap the piece of equipment. So so they would get more money, but they would have to scrap their piece of equipment. So something to think about also.
Yeah.
So I want to just I'm sorry, I just would like to say real quick, thank you I'd like everybody to see or look at the implementation manual that's currently posted on the californiacore.org, and to see the manufacturer's requirements as well as the attachment A for the manufacturer's applications and dealerships terms and conditions, because I do want to understand how that might be updated to reflect this market for this type of equipment, because they really was originally geared for the program that it supports, which is the larger pieces of equipment in terms of eligibility. And so how should that be modified for more higher volume kind of production for these small off-road pieces of equipment? Thank you.
Thank you, Tess. We'll take one more raised hand and then move over to the written questions. So Mark Rose, you have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Thank you. My name is Mark Reese. I'm with Sustainable Energy, Inc. And a series of things here. Could some vouchers be reserved to each class for new technologies, especially ones with better specifications than incumbents, to help them hurdle the barriers to market entry? And here I'm referring to batteries and motors and things like that. Okay, I've got more. You want to go ahead and do it back and forth, Darlene?
Sure, we can do one question at a time if you'd like. So your question is, you want to silo the equipment by a dollar amount?
No, my question is, we're developing new technologies, and we're just wondering if some vouchers could be reserved for new technologies that have better specifications than the incumbents to help them hurdle the barriers to market entry.
Got it. The core program is for commercial ready products right now. So
Yeah,
not demonstration.
Yeah, I'm actually meaning, okay, so we're not right now, but.
Right.
Yeah, no,
right.
yeah, that's what we're saying.
Okay, then is there any possibility of funding battery conversion kits for in-use equipment to save major resource and money?
Are you saying that you have conversion kits that you already manufacture for handhelds and non-handheld small pieces of off-road equipment for professional landscapers?
No, but it could be done. So what we have, what our ally has is conversion kit for a class 3 truck that's ready, and they will have them for all classes of trucks and buses.
So this is specific to small off-road pieces of equipment for professional landscapers?
I'm just saying that our ally is in the conversion kit business, and it's easy to extend that to something like a ride-on stand ride mower, or it's also easy to extend it, since the batteries are small and have a lot of capacity in them. It's easy to extend it to these other kinds of hardware too. But we would want to know that the state supports the idea of conversion kits in funding before investing in doing it.
Well, conversion kits are already eligible for core, so you have to go through the application process, including the manufacturer's production line type of questions.
Okay,
so
great.
You're eligible. It's open for it.
Right. Love to hear more about it.
Great. Okay. And okay, so I guess this echoes what you already know. You need at least 2 batteries and a charger. So next, if you collect the gas units, they might be feasible to convert and resell as battery electric. Homeowners would actually be really happy once they realize they don't need to listen to the 2-stroke whine and howl for much of the day in the neighborhood. And then let's see, down at Cockpoint. Okay, so we've already covered conversion. I'll skip that one. And you could get far more results per dollar by funding our battery development. We're targeting 3 to 7 times the capacity per kilogram or per liter of lithium batteries, and our solar film development, which targets 36% efficiency initially, then 42 to 44% compared to 18 to 24%. Both will be less expensive than the solar power available today. That's it. Thank you. What you got? An answer for that?
Well, like I said, this project for commercial ready products. That sounds like a great project you're working on, and send some information over to me. That would be great. Like I said, but again, this is for commercial ready products.
Commercial ready products, but I also want to be clear about this too. That is one of the reasons we've had this discussion for commercial grade, because I don't believe that the small businesses and sole proprietors, especially neighborhood gardeners, that's come up quite a bit, have the bandwidth for that kind of like testing out a piece of equipment. So just to be mindful of that as you fill out your application to participate for your eligible pieces of equipment. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, we'll move over to a few written questions. We've got a couple comments from Carolyn Marsden. I'll read them out one by one. I don't believe that once landscapers see the benefits of electric equipment, they will simply not use the old gas equipment. Instead, they will sell or give it to someone, and the polluting equipment will continue to operate. The second comment I have is, it is difficult to do outreach to small landscapers. If we don't know how much money will be coming into San Diego, how will we know? How will it be assessed? And the third comment I have from Carolyn Marsden is, many of the small landscapers don't have a computer and don't speak English. Online application is not equitable.
So your question on outreach. Okay, go ahead, Jake.
Oh, I was just going to say for the comment about the majority of the stakeholders that we're trying to target are Spanish speaking, and the equitable concept when it comes to applying for the program. The application or voucher will be submitted by dealers that are approved in the program, and so we'll be working with our dealers to make sure that they have the tools they need to communicate with the stakeholder group and collect all the required information to submit these vouchers. So that's going to be a big help for the purchaser or end user, because they won't have to sit down at a computer and apply themselves. They'll have a resource with their local dealer or here us at the core team. So that should help with some of the application process.
And that kind of leads into the first come, first serve and the outreach. And I agree, it's gonna be tough to outreach, especially the really small proprietor and the mom and pop operations. And it's gonna take a lot of work through the dealership, as they're the ones that work on the 2-stroke and the 4-stroke handheld pieces of equipment right now to inform their customers about this program and get them in line in the first come, first serve system.
Thank you, Todd and Jacob. I'll move on to the next question here. It says, how will equipment be selected for this program? Is the equipment that is already in the ZEE certified, will they have priority?
No, there'll be all manufacturers will have to send in what equipment they want into this program. So manufacturer A, B, C, D will send in whatever, we'll have a list of equipment types like we have on the screen right now. They can submit their commercial grade equipment into the program, work with their dealers, and to get that equipment to the owners of the equipment.
Thank you, Todd. We have a question from Julie McKeon. Is there any consideration for the proper disposal of batteries so that batteries don't end up in landfills? Is it possible to offer incentives towards proper disposal of batteries that could go towards purchasing replacement batteries as needed?
That's a great comment. We touched on this a little bit earlier when we were talking to one of the equipment manufacturers and how they do it. That's similar to other programs I've heard about through other equipment manufacturers. I don't know if that's all of them, but that is something to think about.
Thank you. We have a question from Lawrence Emerson. I think you guys have touched on this a little bit, but who does the voucher paperwork? The dealer, or the landscaper? Small landscapers don't have access to computers and don't know how to use the internet. Need to make it easy and equitable for small landscapers. Also, it says note, also can't pump gasoline when power is out.
Great point. And we did just touch on that, Emrit, is that almost all the work is done through the dealer, right? So the dealer would have to be set up with a computer and turn the voucher request in. Really, the owner just has to pick out what kind of equipment he wants, pay for the difference, and walk away with a piece of extra equipment. Most of the work is on the dealer.
Thank you, Todd. We've got a comment here. It says, to give you an idea in terms of revenue, the 2021 State of the Industry report from Lawn and Landscape magazine mentions a median gross revenue for landscape businesses of $600,000 for the West region, with about 50% coming from landscape and mowing maintenance.
Super, that's great. All the information we can get, the better. So thank you for that.
All right, we've got a question from Daniel Langmead, or a comment. Just as a comment that if co-funding is sought with state reserve funding through Moyer, there likely will be a scrap requirement to meet the Moyer program guidelines. Ideally, many projects will see co-funding with Moyer.
You're correct. That would be ideal.
Thanks, Todd. We have a question from Dennis Stotch. Is there a schedule or deadline for submission of applications for manufacturers? Is there a deadline for submission program development questions?
For the first part of your question, there's not a deadline. We have not started or opened that process yet. I'm expecting that to be mid to late summer. We'll open the door for dealers and manufacturers. Did not understand the second part of your question. Can you repeat it again, Amrit?
The second yes, of course. Is there a deadline for submission program development questions?
Oh, okay, I think I understand what you're talking about. No, you can, my email address was at the end of this. You have program suggestions. We'll be taking those suggestions up to the time we release the implementation manual, or the attachment D for the lawn and garden equipment. So yeah, your comments and proposals are welcome. So please send those to me.
Thank you, Todd. We've got a couple comments here. So I think this is referring to a conversation earlier. It says, agreed with Gabe on the less than $1,000 mark and the impact on charging infrastructures when converting to battery powered solutions.
Super, thanks.
And we have a comment from Gabe Foe, again, referring to a conversation prior. Brandon is right. Commercial quality can be determined by performance. 2 to 3 year warranty period available for replacement parts. And we have a comment from Muriel Strand. Urban farming equipment should be eligible for subsidies. Urban farming for homeowners is a new business model for gardeners. This can shrink supply chains and thus emissions and energy use. I can suggest some informational resources.
Okay, thank you, Muriel.
But we have one last comment here. It's a bit of a three-part. These are comments from Jan Chayton Brown. First, priority should be given to purchase of the most polluting equipment, which is blowers and trimmers. Second, I join the many other commenters that there should definitely be scrappage programs. The user of an electric blower may not use the old equipment, but it is almost certain to give it to a friend or a neighbor or sell it. Furthermore, the safest approach for the landscaper person and the least polluting is the old-fashioned rake and hoe. Some significantly sized landscaping companies in San Diego are doing that, and it is the quietest option for the surrounding community. The safest for the landscape person and doesn't consume electricity, which as has been noted, will be increasingly in demand. Those are some of the reasons why a buyback program would be an important alternative to trade-in programs. While there may be some resistance from the public, noise from existing blowers is a huge irritant in many communities.
Super, thanks for those comments.
All right, I'm actually going to move over to the hands raised. So we have a hand raised from Daniel Mabe. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hello, everyone. Dan Mabe, American Green Zone Alliance. And I want to echo the sentiments applauding the state CARB for putting this program together. And definitely want to thank Kim Alexander for actually putting out there the idea of setting aside some funding for legitimate outreach, training and education, reaching those end users, and in Spanish and English, being able to elaborate, for example, how many batteries is going to equate to a tank of gas, and granular and specific to each tool that they typically use. And on that note, as far as the blowers go, AGSA is very, very honest with this industry. If they're going to replace, for example, their Echo PB770T two-stroke leaf blower with even some of the strongest options on the market today in electric, it's going to fall short, typical to the efficiencies and workload production capability that they're accustomed to. So we have found, interacting with over 200 independent companies and having that feedback, there definitely is going to be that component of helping them understand the economics the workload production, and ensuring that this is going to endure, and they're going to actually use that piece of equipment for 3 years or longer. Definitely, I hope that there's still a discovery process to move forward in an unbiased manner, of course, to help determine what actually is commercial and what is not. We'll go ahead and pay attention to see how that develops. And then lastly, just want to put it out there that AGSA and NALP have definitely had conversations on how to, even before this program was conceived, to how are we going to reach the independent proprietors that are mostly bilingual, Spanish as first language. And we definitely have some really strong ideas and things that we could probably discuss with you guys of how to reach that demographic. And again, I just want to thank you guys for putting this program together. Thank you.
Great comments, Dan. Thank you very much. You mentioned a acronym that I didn't know. MALP.
NALP, National,
NALP.
National Association of Landscape Professionals.
Got it. Right. Okay. I'm sorry. I thought you said that, but thank you.
Yep.
So Dan, we're particularly interested in your input for the commercial grade for the eligibility of the equipment. Like I definitely would like your input on that. So I wouldn't mind that kind of active conversation with you. Thank you.
Yeah, and your thoughts on outreach to the small businesses and the Spanish speaking. So that'd be really helpful. So let's set up a meeting and talk about that.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a hand raised from Muriel Strand. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hi, I'm Muriel Strand. I'm a retired air resources engineer, and I just wanted to add on a little bit. Now, I posted in the Q&A a sort of basic concept. You can look at that. But in terms of education, we need to educate ourselves not to have lawns. But in terms of Spanish speaking, it's quite possible that Spanish speaking, gardeners actually know more already about urban farming potentially. So I just wanted to add that. Thanks.
Thank you, Meryl.
Thank you. We have a hand raised with the number ending in 7957. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation. Oh, okay. I think they might have just hung up. We'll move on to the next one. Next raised hand by Beverly. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Great, thank you for taking my input. Beverly Deschaux, I'm with the Electric Vehicle Association of Central Coast, California. I did already speak, but I have a few more comments. And one thing is that the landscaping industry could possibly learn from the electric vehicle, our efforts in the past 15 years of having adoption of electric vehicles. So I laugh when you say they're going to cost $1,200. We were trying to convince people to spend $40,000, $50,000. So for me, this is like, yeah, no big deal. But I understand, if it's a person's business and they don't have the money, I understand, but people don't, that's what they're saying about the cars too. They don't have the money. So one thing that we did that has been very successful is that we let people try them out. So we've had large events all across the country for the past, 12, 13, 14 years. And we have owners, and I don't know, you guys probably won't have owners that'll be so stoked about it that they'll want to come and talk to people all day. But you have the dealers and the manufacturers who come and they talk to people about it and they get test drives. So, and another thing is that our dealers have been willing to actually lend the vehicles to people for a day or two or a week even. And it allows people to, so of course there is concern. It's a whole new technology. People are not familiar with it. So yes, and to ask them to turn it in is kind of scary. But what we found is immediately when people get their electric vehicle, they love it. There are almost no people who say they don't love it. And they are way more efficient and so have way less maintenance. And I don't know about this equipment. I haven't looked into this equipment, so I don't know, but maybe the manufacturers and the dealers know about that. So, and the other thing is that some of our libraries, our library is soon going to have this because as we transition to electric, one of the biggest obstacles are the people who are the foodies who like to use their gas stove. So some of the municipalities are having cook stoves in the library that people can take out and try them out. And again, with the same results, that people usually almost always love them. And some, well-known cooks are trying them out and loving them. So that's a way. But so I was going to say, well, maybe, so everyone is saying, everybody is aware, we need to get them off the road. So it's just a matter of how to do that and not freak people out like that they're going to have to give it up in order to get the money to buy another one. So one thought I had was, well, after a few months, then you can turn it in and get some bonus or something. But I like that a woman who said, give them more. So that's what we've done with hybrids. So hybrids are like that. Hybrids, people were totally freaked to spend $40,000, $50,000 to buy a car that they don't know if they can get to Tahoe. That was always what people say. Well, what if I want to go to Tahoe? So, so the hybrid was that. It gave people the opportunity to buy the vehicle and drive around town and do most of their stuff on an electric vehicle and still have the range if they needed it. But now we have the range. So the technology has advanced that now we have the range and we don't need the hybrids. So wisely, CARB is phasing out funding for hybrids. So I don't know that we have that kind of option with the with these pieces of equipment. Someone was concerned about the grid, the load on the grid. That's always a concern as well. During the day, California has an excess of solar energy coming into, that is renewable energy coming into the grid. It's dumping it. California grid operators are dumping the excess solar during the day. Then, so it's called the duck curve. So we have this big belly of excess energy during the day, meaning anyway, and then in the evening, it ramps up to people needing to have their alternatives to that because we don't have enough battery storage. However, what's coming is the ability for electric vehicles to, at some point very soon, provide, have their vehicles aggregated when there are enough. Hopefully, if we get the 5 million by 2030, we'll have enough to aggregate it. And there is software to do that. And there are experiments being done.
I'm sorry, Beverly. I just wanted to interrupt you only because I'm trying to
make sure.
Digest your comments as they relate to the small off-road professional landscaping equipment.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to relate, like, I understand you're using examples from light duty, but I'm trying to relate how does that translate to manufacturers and dealerships requirements for, so that purchasers of small businesses and sole proprietor professional landscapers can get these equipment?
Well, somebody did, I'm addressing, somebody was concerned about the grid, that there would be, if all these people suddenly got landscaping equipment and needed to charge it. So by giving them 2 batteries, they can charge it on solar during the day. That was my point.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay,
right, thank you.
Thank you for asking that. And I have a couple of other comments, and that is, as I said, about the battery recycling. Lithium batteries are not allowed in the landfill. I'm sure that people sneak them in, but the truth is about the lithium ion batteries is that the minerals that are in them are very valuable. So there are a lot of businesses that are in the formation for recycling, and the batteries can be recycled. And I appreciate one of the dealers who was saying that they made sure to in fact do that. And I think that would be a good thing for CARB to do, is to make sure that that's a component in there, that somehow they get recycled. And as I said,
Beverly, that's a great point. And we touched on that earlier with a manufacturer. We only have a little bit of time left here, and really not too much time, and we only have a couple of meetings with landscape folks. I really want to keep it focused on landscaping. If we could do that. So if you have any wrap-up question or comment on landscaping, that'd be awesome.
So the batteries are to do with it, because someone brought that up. That's what I'm speaking to, is that other things that other people have said. I think that as far as giving the money, and considering the businesses, if people have 100 employees, they have money, so they can afford. In my mind, they should be able to afford to purchase the new equipment. So for people to say they're not going to get it, they're not going to buy them unless they have the money for them. Well, isn't CARB requiring that people transition out of those gas and oil equipment by 2034?
Beverly, it's tough for all sizes of businesses, but the SB 178 funding is specifically for small business sole proprietors, and that's where I try to focus our topic here on.
Okay, but isn't the goal 2034 that they have to be transitioned?
No. So that the SOAR equipment was the no more selling of gasoline powered equipment.
Okay.
So this program is trying to help the transition, and that's what we're here for, to talk about today.
Okay, so my just the point is if people were able to try them out, but they definitely need to be scrapped. Everybody's saying that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Beverly. That's great comments.
So giving them more money, like with the hybrids and the EV, that was the point with you bringing up the hybrids and the EV, is that there was more incentive money provided for a straight EV from a hybrid EV.
Okay.
And so that could be
Beverly,
a way
if you want to talk about this more, you can send me an email and give me a call. We can talk about this some more.
I think I've got.
Super. Thanks for your comments.
Thank you. We have a raised hand from Heather Taylor. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hi, this is Heather Taylor with the Sacramento Air District. It's great to have you guys on the workshop track here. It's good to see this information getting out to more people. I put in the comments, I'm working on a project right now in Sacramento, and I have a quote in front of me. I won't mention the brand names, but I put into the comment there the prices of equipment, so you would have that. And hopefully, if there is no scrap, then the percentage is going to be higher to help people with that transition. And I read the slides as a small business maximum number is. Are you saying a small business is a $10 million business and at a minimum? Or is that a maximum?
No, so that would be a maximum of $10 million annual gross revenue. So
okay, so it's covering everybody under that.
Right.
Okay, great. That I was like, wow. Okay, maybe that's why everybody's really concerned about that point. Okay, I think that's it.
Okay, can I reach out to you in the next few days about the pricing?
Sure.
There. Okay, yeah. Super.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Todd, there's no raised hands or written questions at this time.
Okay. If we don't have any more comments or questions, then here's my contact information. If you come up with something that you think about later on tonight or next few days, next few weeks, actually, send me an email. We can talk about this. I want to thank everybody who participated today in this work group meeting, all the participants, and of course the presenters today. I want to thank everybody. I thought it was a really good discussion today. I thought we had a lot of really good comments and questions, and really look forward to moving this project forward. Again, we're on a fast timeline. This is our first work group meeting. Our next work group meeting will be on June 22nd. And I encourage you to, if you're not already signed up for the core listserv, to sign up for that core listserv. If you have problems finding that, send me an email. I'll help you with that. And also check out the core CalStart webpage, way it's set up now. When we set up the landscaping, I think it'll look very similar to that, and it's going to get a better understanding of how this is going to work. Again, thank you for everybody for your participation today, and have a great evening.